This tutorial is about how to write a response essay for English 101. A response essay is a reaction to a text that you have read. And in doing so, you will need to analyze the text, you'll need to summarize the key points of the text, and you'll need to react to it through your own personal opinion and experience. Another key component of a response essay is that your response includes specific references to the text. So you're not just using the text as a springboard for your own ideas, but you are reacting very specifically to specific elements of that text. So the first step to writing your response essay is to analyze the text. You need to determine the overall thesis or point of the reading, and you need to pull out the supporting details, looking for all the ways that the author supported, expanded on, explained the overall thesis. And you want to ask yourself, are those details sufficient? Are they reliable, convincing, logical? You also want to think about the context of the reading. Who is the author? When was this written? Even perhaps the source of it. Where was it written? You also want to specifically think about the audience of this reading, the author's purpose in writing the essay, and the overall tone, giving specific references to the text in terms of what gave you the impression of a particular tone. You also want to think about the author's worldview as well as your own, any biases that the author has or exhibits in the reading as well as your own, and any assumptions that the author makes in the reading. After you've analyzed the reading, you want to explore your own thoughts and impressions. What did you think about this article? What parts of it did you agree with? What parts did you disagree with? What did you think were the strengths and weaknesses of the argument? And very specifically, how did you relate personally to this article as it applies to your own life or to situations you either know of or can imagine? And of course, as I mentioned before, consider your own worldview, biases, and assumptions. The third step is to determine the thesis of your essay. So remember, we are not just restating what the article said. We are creating our own essay as a reaction to the text. So your thesis could be basically agreeing with the author's ideas or pushing back and disagreeing with the author's ideas or thesis, or perhaps more commonly, a combination of points that you liked and points that you didn't like. Your thesis should be specific, not just I agree, but I agree specifically in this example that public schools, more needs to be done to support public schools, which play a crucial role in the lives of so many students. The fourth step in the process is to organize your response. And here is a suggested way to organize your essay. Obviously, you must have an introductory paragraph in which you would identify the text, give a brief summary of the key points, and end with your thesis for your essay. You also will have a body paragraph, or more likely multiple body paragraphs. These would be supporting your thesis. So if there are particular points you disagreed with, what were those points? How did you disagree with them, or why did you disagree with them? And making specific references to those parts of the text that you disagree with or agree with, whatever the case may be. A lot of instructors suggest 3 body paragraphs. That may be a good choice in terms of getting the word requirement for this particular assignment, but you are certainly flexible in how many body paragraphs that you choose. Remember that each body paragraph should be dealing with one overall point, so that it's a unified paragraph. And finally, in your essay, you want to have a conclusion. That would be a full paragraph to recap or reemphasize your thesis and to provide closure for your essay. Going through those parts in a little more detail, the introduction should identify the author, title, date, and thesis of the text. It should explain the author's audience and purpose for writing. Briefly, very briefly, summarize the key points of the text. And at the end of that introduction, provide your thesis. And the whole paragraph should be unified with good transitions to allow a good flow in that paragraph. Here's an example of a sample first sentence of the introduction. The body section of your essay, again, for each body paragraph, you should be doing two things. One, you need to be referring to specific points in the text that you're discussing, agreeing, disagreeing, or making additional points about. You may paraphrase using your own words, or you may directly quote as long as they're very brief. In either case, you need to provide clear author attribution to that paraphrase or that quote so that it is clear what parts of your essay are referring to the text. And if you do use a direct quotation, you should include the paragraph number so that the reader can be directed to that specific spot. And you can see an example there. In addition to referring to specific points in the text, we want your critique. We want your ideas, your experience, your opinions. This part is certainly in the first person point of view, the I or we point of view, and we definitely want your own ideas. You want to contribute to the discussion and relate it to your own life. Once you're done with your body paragraphs, your conclusion should recap or summarize your thesis. This might be a good place to, again, make reference to the article to show the connection between your response and the article itself. This is not the place to provide any new supporting points or new information or new points in the text, but it should not copy your thesis statement. It should be a fresh way of concluding and providing closure. This would be a sample concluding sentence, although you would have a complete paragraph. And you can see referring to the text as well as making the author's final point. There's a checklist in the PowerPoint that you can go through to make sure that you are including all the elements that are necessary for a response essay. Okay, the specific assignment for Unit 3, let me just move things down here a little bit, is to read Fact Checking Won't Save Us from Fake News. Here's the PowerPoint that I went over. Eventually I'll have the YouTube link working. You'll want to read the essay guidelines and the essay rubric. And then what I want to show you is the pre-writing form. So this worksheet will need to be filled out and submitted as the first step in this writing process. So it simply helps you to analyze the article, pulling out all of those items that I just mentioned through the PowerPoint, your reaction, points you liked, points you didn't like, and then deciding what your thesis is, and then organizing your essay with your introduction, your body paragraphs. I think I have space here for 3 body paragraphs, but you certainly can add to that if you need to, and the conclusion. You're going to type your responses on this worksheet and send that to me as your pre-writing. And then from there, you'll go on to actually type out the finished essay. I hope this will be helpful as you complete the Unit 3 response essay.